I'm Vinny Politan. Thanks so much for joining us here tonight on Closing Arguments. And we're going to spend some time right now getting the latest in the search for Brian Laundrie. And today really is a change in this whole case. It's something that we have not seen yet. And you'll recall the big, the thing that struck a nerve with so many people was the actions and reactions of Brian Laundrie and his family, his parents, down in that yellow house down in Northport, Florida, how they didn't say anything to Gabby's family. They didn't search for Gabby. They didn't respond to text messages. They just went silent. Well, then when Brian Laundrie went missing, what was kind of strange was the parents reported him missing, but didn't seem like they were really looking for him. They really didn't look that worried either. I mean, they really weren't doing anything. They weren't pleading with the public. Nothing like that. It was a much different response. And you put that response together with the response to Gabby Petito going missing or not coming back with Brian from this amazing adventure around the country. And you wonder, well, what are they doing? Why are they acting this way? Today things a little different, okay? There is Brian's father. That's Chris Laundrie. Getting up, he's got a plastic bag with him. I don't know what's in the bag, but he in the bag getting into his red pickup truck and heading out. You know, people are camped out all around the house in the neighborhood, but he gets into the car. And where do you think he's going? Believe it or not, as he's exiting his neighborhood here in his red truck, he's actually coordinated things with law enforcement that he is going to meet them right here at the reserve to apparently help search for his son Brian. And police expecting him, they recognize him. Boom, he's coming in, and it's time to go look for Brian. And I guess the father can shed some light on where Brian Laundrie may be, because they've been, you know, this is a camping family. This is what they do. They go camping. And apparently there's some hiking trails in there that maybe he's familiar with, that he's been on with his son. Unbelievable development. Now, we've got a statement from the family attorney for the Laundries. I think they should have more than one lawyer at this point. I think Brian should have his own, but here's what the Laundrie family attorney is saying. Today, Chris Laundrie accompanied members of law enforcement into the reserve to show them the trails and places Chris and Brian have hiked and which Brian was known to frequent. There were no discoveries, but the effort was helpful to all. It seems the water in the preserve is receding and certain areas are more accessible to search. The entire Laundrie family is grateful for the hard work of the dedicated members of law enforcement that have been searching the reserve for Brian over the last few weeks. Hopefully, Brian will be located soon. And that, again, is from Steve Bertolino, who's the attorney for the Laundrie family. What should we make of this? What does this exactly mean? Let me bring in two people and give us a lot of insight into this. Joining us in Chicago, Illinois, private investigator Erica Morse, and she has been working with lots of families who are searching for people. In Los Angeles, California, retired FBI Special Agent Bobby Chacon, who has searched and arrested many people in the past. And we know the FBI is involved in all of this as well. Great to have you both back. Erica, first from a family perspective, okay, let's change the equation here a little bit, and let's just look at the Laundries as a couple, a family that has a son and they don't know where he is. What are your thoughts about the way they've reacted to that situation and what today's actions mean to you, someone who has worked with so many families in the past?
Vinny, I actually wrote down some names during that last package. Mark Klass, Clint Dunn, Lou Zaharias, Solomon Metawala, Joseph Petito. This is how a father acts when their child is missing. Bill Smolinski, they drop everything, they start looking, and they don't stop. I am so bothered by that press release Dad accompanied law enforcement out to show them the trails, not Dad was out searching high and low. I get that this is an attorney doing attorney speak, but there is such a lack of emotion and urgency and concern. And after working with hundreds, if not thousands, of families over the last decade, that is the one constant that every parent feels, is that urgency and that critical need to find their child now. It's not here, and it's very hard to ignore.
Bobby Chacon, this is a strange day. It's a strange dynamic. Brian Laundrie there's a federal warrant out for his arrest, number one, for the credit card stuff, for the debit card stuff. He's a person of interest in the homicide of Gabby Petito, yet he's missing, and his parents are they helping? Are they not helping? That's a strange relationship.
Yeah, Vinny, when I first heard the reporting this morning that he was helping in the search, I looked into it a little bit more, and I think it's a gross mischaracterization of what he's doing. He's not helping in the search. Helping in the search means you're actually actively going places where he might be. What he did was he simply pointed out a few places that they've gone to before. He looked more annoyed getting into that car than anything else. And I think what my colleague is saying is normally what we've always found, the word that we use with the parents is anguish. And what we have here with the Laundries is annoyance. And so there's a huge difference between being annoyed and being anguished. And that's the difference here. I wouldn't even characterize what he did today as helping with the search. I think he went out and he was probably badgered to go out and just point out a few places. Probably there was some negotiation on how much he would do. But he probably wanted to, make it look like he was helping. But his actions today do not resurrect him in my eyes at all.
Yeah, Eric, have you ever seen the way everything has developed in this case is very different than most that I've ever seen. Does it remind you of any other case? Is there any sort of point of reference that we can have as we try to analyze what's happening here?
Ugh, hate to say it, but Casey Anthony. And here's why. It's the indifference. There is an indifference taking place here, and that is a major disconnect. And for any one of us who has worked these cases time and time again, rule number one is you look at the people who are the least interested in finding the missing person. And there is a complete lack of interest here. It's mind-boggling. And the reason the court of public opinion is so enraged is because this is not how parents act. And again, my colleague, oh my gosh, nailed it. It was annoyance. I picked up on that as well when Dad was walking from the house to the truck. Most parents are either stopping to talk to the media or in a rush to get to meet law enforcement. This was walking kind of casually and, yes, annoyed. I think this took time out of his busy day, whatever that may be. And I don't think that locating Brian right now is priority number one for them.
And if you look at a calendar, many days have passed since, we have the new timeline now, Bobby Chacon. That's the other thing that I found kind of bizarre is that the family says, oh, wait a minute, no, he went on that hike on the 13th, not the 14th.
Again, this is all a result of them not being honest and open from the very beginning, from day one, and telling us this piecemeal thing, leaking these little details either through the sister or through the attorney. It's all part and parcel of the same subterfuge and the same smoke that they want to create. There's one reasonable explanation in my mind on why and how the parents would act this way. And it's because they know where Brian is, or they know what his plans are. They hatched a plan together in that house those first few days of September, and then they went about executing that plan. That's the only, to me, reasonable. If that were the plan, the parents' behavior now is completely in line with that. That's the only plan, I would think, that they're in line with. They know what he's doing. They may not know exactly where he is, but they've given him the funds and the assets and the ability to execute whatever plan they had in place. Maybe go somewhere where nobody knows you, and buy enough food and stuff to survive for 30, 60, 90 days, whatever it is. Maybe they have some kind of communication with him. Maybe they don't. They don't need it. And so the only reasonable explanation in my mind, and I've gone through many, many different scenarios in my mind, is that they know where Brian is, and they're okay with it.
Now, there's another potential development a lot of people have been talking about. There was some reporting on CNN by Chris Cuomo. Let's take a listen.
A source close to the Laundrie family has told me that law enforcement says they found fresh traces of a campsite in the reserve. As you know, authorities are currently searching for Brian Laundrie in the Carlton Preserve in Venice, Florida. An attorney for the Laundrie family says the parents believe that's exactly where he's located. Quote, they don't believe he's in another area. They believe he is in the preserve.
Okay, if there's fresh traces of a campsite, we saw when the father was going in there, that whole area's been locked off. I mean, that would be huge. Am I downplaying this at all? That would be a major, major development if, in fact, it's true, Erica.
It would be a major development if it's true, because that area being locked down, that means that somebody might have snuck in when there is a limited staff, skeleton crew, so to speak, watching the area. But again, we have to question everything that we're hearing at this point. I think that this has been a very strategic situation in terms of obtaining attorney representation prior to even the report being made or anyone even knowing Gabby was missing. And so we have to take every report that we get right now with a grain of salt coming from that camp.
I want to put a map up on the screen because there's two areas and they're connected. Oh, we don't have that map. Okay. So let me ask you, Bobby, if we're talking about this fresh campsite, is it plausible to you that all these days later that he could be like bopping around this reserve from spot to spot, hiding out and not being spotted with all these resources that have been poured into that area?
I preface everything by saying anything's possible, right? So I could be wrong, but I don't think that's the case. And I think that if he has the skills that some people think he has, he wouldn't be leaving a campsite. It's pretty easy to when you're camping on very minimal infrastructure, it's pretty easy to clean up after yourself and move on. I was involved in the Eric Rudolph search, and we searched for him for years in the North Carolina mountains, and we would occasionally come across some cans of food that were opened and things like that. Unfortunately, we were always longer behind than we could use that information. But we would have to know what this campsite consisted of, what there was, how long they thought it was abandoned and stuff. But it doesn't sound to me like it's an earth-shattering development. It could be, but to me, I take it with a grain of salt.
Erica, what are your thoughts here as we sit here? Now we're in October. When do you think they track him down? Like, how long does this take? I mean, Bobby Jacone's mentioning Rudolph. That guy was like, he prepared and planned for this whole thing for him, and he was kind of built to disappear for such a long time. I don't get the same feeling about this kid.
I think stamina, I mentioned it a couple weeks ago, will wear out. It is hard being out there alone, especially when you can't reach out, when everyone in your closest orbit is under very intense scrutiny. The weather is getting ready to change, and I think that's also going to be a deterrent for him. And also, it's one of my favorite times of year for missing persons, and that's hunting season. And that means an increased presence with people in wooded areas, and the chances of him being spotted during hunting season increases dramatically. So, I think there is this air of arrogance that we've all felt up until now, his ability to navigate through the Appalachian Trail, his ability to stay out there, for long periods of time. But again, luck always runs out, and what's always done in the dark, what's done in the dark always comes to light.
Hey, Bobby, can you give us some idea of and compare this fugitive to Rudolph and what Rudolph did to prepare for hiding from authorities for that long, and what it took for him to stay hidden for all that time?
Well, sure. What you had, and you mentioned it earlier, you were exactly right. What Rudolph did was he actually pre-staged supplies all around those mountains. And he told people for years that someday the feds were going to be hunting for him and he'd be able to avoid them. He knew that. And that was part of his overall plan. So he had 5-gallon buckets filled with can openers and canned food and lighting equipment and stuff. And even with that, he ran out of those things. We would find them. He would squeeze himself into these rock pilings that were no wider than your shoulders, and he would sleep in there for 2 or 3 days. So he had water and he had food pre-staged. I don't think Brian Laundrie had that kind of time, although he did have some planning time. We know those 2 weeks in September were good for planning, but according to, with Rudolph, I think it was much more sophisticated. Ultimately, he did run out of that food. He started breaking into cabins that were seasonal and people weren't there, started stealing food from cabins. And ultimately, he was caught by a very alert police officer when he was rummaging through a dumpster because he had come out of the mountains into a nearby town for food. So he literally ran out of all that food that he had. And we found some of it. But I don't think Brian had that kind of lead time. But the lead time that he did have, I think, gave him the ability to, if they said, go to this place. Remember, you can Airbnb something very anonymously. He could be holed up in some remote cabin somewhere, and they say, just hide out for 90 or 120 days, however long he has funds available and food available and things like that. So, it could be a little while in my mind, unless he is actually trying to live off the land. If he does find shelter, I think it could be a little while.